So Chapter 10 is securing TCP/IP. Your author in the book describes a five-step process that he uses for security, or how he describes security. I'm going to break from that. That is not an industry standard protocol that he uses. It's something he invented, and he's used it in his book. For those of you who may take the Security Plus exam later, or if you go off into other certifications, you're going to find another industry standard called the CIA Triad. And the CIA Triad is broken into three areas: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So, confidentiality, this is exactly what it sounds like. It's a way to keeping data and information confidential. Within the confidentiality area, we're thinking, think encryption, or way of hiding data, and that type of thing. It's just we're trying to keep data confidential. Integrity is the ability to verify the data is actually accurate. The term you're going to hear here is non-repudiation, which non-repudiation is a way we can track actions back down to the original account. And integrity is a combination of authentication, that is verifying who someone is, and authorization, which is that person or that account supposed to be doing what they're doing? Is the person supposed to be making changes? Does that account supposed to have access to that data? So again, let's go over confidentiality. Again, this is mostly encryption. And when we talk about encryption, we're going to turn plain text into a non-readable format. Next thing we have is integrity. And integrity, again, this is just one of those areas where we want to verify the data that we have. I'm trying to go to a different little font here, so integrity. That's actually better. This is where we ensure data that was received was the actual data that was sent. So we are actually verifying the data is correct. One of the ways we verify this in our layer 2 model is our FCS. So in our frame, our FCS is one of the ways we actually verify integrity. So keep that in mind. There are other ways we'll do this, and we'll talk about those a little bit. The one term you're going to hear with integrity is non-repudiation. Now, non-repudiation is where actions can be tracked down to the original, to its origins. This gives us the ability to tell someone that yes, that was your account that sent that email. And this can be, non-repudiation can be very easy sometimes, and sometimes it can be very, very difficult. Non-repudiation is one of the situations where, again, We're trying to track, that's where we track back actions to the original person who actually did it. Oops, sorry about that. And the last we have here is integrity. This is the integrity is broken into authentication and authorization. So I hope to get another technology in the next week to actually make this a little bit easier. But integrity with integrity, we break it into authentication, sorry about that, and authentication is basically is a person who he claims to be. The most common form of authentication we use today is username and password authentication, and the last part of integrity is authorization. Within authorization is the account authorized to see the data or is it authorized to make those changes? So this is an issue. This is an issue with. Sorry about that. So encryption. So when we talk about encryption, this is the ability to hide data. Now we're not hiding it in a secret location. It's actually hidden in plain sight. We actually see the data many times in it's encrypted. We can see stuff out there. We open it up. It's just gobbledygook. So one of the terms we hear here is called plain text. In plain text, data is actually readable. We call this clear text. The way we encrypt our plain text is using what's called a cipher. And this is a way to encrypt data. And what you hear a lot of times in the term cipher is called algorithm. An algorithm is nothing but a formula or a set of steps used to perform a task, in this case, encrypt data. So this is just a series of steps to be followed. Steps, sorry. So you hear the term encrypt algorithm. The algorithm is used a lot in computing. It's just nothing but a series of steps. First do this, second do this, third do this, fourth do that. That's all an algorithm is. It's just a series of steps. Nothing special about it. Within encryption, we have different types, and just have to be aware of a couple of them for this test. And you don't have to just be knowing what some of these are, you may get asked questions. It's again not a huge. We don't spend a lot of time on security in Network Plus, but you do run into a few areas that you're going to have to be aware of. The first is called a substitution cipher. This is the one you probably played with as a little kid, where you substituted the number 1 for the letter A, the number 2 for the letter B. This is just a substitution cipher. Substitution cipher. So again, we're just simply substituting one letter or phrase for another. So for example, the number 1 is equal to the letter A, the number 2 is equal to the letter B, number 3 is equal to the letter C, the number 20 is equal to the letter T. So cat, using this, would be 3, 1, 20. And that would, you just simply substitute to decrypt this. 3 would be C, 1 would be A, and 20 would be T. Again, a simple substitution cipher. The most common substitution cipher, which is basically what we've done here, is called the Caesar cipher. And again, just a simple substitution like this. The issue with substitution ciphers is they are really easy to crack. We look for pattern analysis. For example, letter E is the most common letter in the in the English alphabet. The letter N is the most common noun. So these are easy to break. Just keep that in mind. Very easy to break. We use pattern analysis to break these. And when we're doing this, again, remember we're going from clear text. We're passing that through some kind of an encryption process or algorithm. And we're coming out with what we call ciphertext. Again, a very, very simple way of doing things. Just again, we do have two other types of encryption that we use that are much more advanced. So we have, sorry. The first one is called a symmetric key. Now with the symmetric key, we use the same key encrypts data, PTS, and decrypts data. So again, same key used to encrypt and decrypt data. These keys usually have to be fairly long. They tend to be fairly long, and the disadvantage of symmetric keys, again, are one of the situations where if you have the key, you can actually you own the keys of the kingdom. You can encrypt and decrypt, and no one can tell what one from the other. The second type of key we use, and by the way, symmetric keys are used quite often. They're easy, they're fast. They can be quite complex. They're very advanced, so don't think they're something that can be easily broken. The second type of encryption, advanced encryption we have is called asymmetric key. So an asymmetric key, we use one key, sorry. One key to encrypt data. And the second key to decrypt data. To decrypt. The asymmetric keys are used widely on the internet. When you go to a website with the HTTPS algorithm website, that S is secure, you're actually encrypting data in that as it's transmitted. That S is the secure piece. That is an asymmetric algorithm that we're using. Now, symmetric keys, they're used by what are called block ciphers, and they encrypt data in chunks. So, but in the symmetric keys, again, these are used as block ciphers. In these block ciphers, we encrypt data in chunks. And for example, you'll hear in 128 key or 128 bit encryption or something like that, bits, 256 bits, etc. Data encryption standards that we use typically are the standards in the symmetric key. That should be a Y. Standards. You'll see DES. Don't use this if you have. That's a very, very old. It's been broken. It was broken in the 90s. 3DES or triple DES. I don't think that's been broken yet, but it is. If it hasn't been broken, it's going to be broken very, very soon. And the new standard is AES, or the Advanced Encryption Standard, or encryption standard. The DES is the data encryption standard. These would use 64-bit chunks of data with a 56-bit key. Triple DES would take the 64 bits and they would do it 3 times. And then AES, they encrypt data at 128-bit blocks. But the keys, which are the important part, these are 128 bits long, 192 bits, or 256 bits. So AES is our current standard, and I'll be honest, anything you use today should be using AES. AES was developed in the late 90s, early 2000s, so there's no reason for companies to come out there and not use AES in today's market. Our HTTPS is using a PKI, a public key technology. Where we use this is in this environment, we have a public key, which is published. Anyone can go out there on the internet and find the public key. It is published. It is you find these with the appropriate what's called certificate authority. So CA, if you hear that term, is called a certificate authority. And the private key. The private key is only known by the company that actually made the request. So the way this works is, we'll say I want to put up a web server with this HTTPS. I go to a certificate authority, something like a company called Sectigo or Komodo, VeriSign, Microsoft, I think, and Google are both doing them now. Also, GoDaddy, and I say, hey, I want to buy a key. So I go to my server, I generate this private key. We then send that key to the CA. The CA will build the public key for us. So we use that private key, and now whenever we want to send data, I can generate the I can encrypt the data using the private key, and anyone that has the public key can decrypt the data. On the flip side, if someone wants to send me data, they can use the public key to make that encryption, and only the private key can decrypt it. So that's kind of the way that works. So in our OSI stack, where all this encryption kind of takes place, it actually takes place in multiple. I know we've always said layer 6. We're going to break from that just for a second here. We're going to use the DoD model, or the TCP/IP model, and in here we have our data, our physical and data link, our link layer. There's no encryption that takes place in here. At the network layer, we can have what's called IPsec, and this becomes really important in IPv6, because in IPv6, IPsec can actually be part of the protocol specification. At the transport layer, we have no encryption. And then, of course, at the upper layers here, mostly within the presentation layer, so we do have the presentation layer in here too, but technically it's we're looking at the TCP/IP model. At this point, we are looking at SSL or TLS, and TLS is the what we use. This is our PKI methodology. This is the asymmetric key encryption that we were talking about here. You're going to hear the term TLS and SSL used interchangeably a lot. SSL is the old version of TLS. If someone tells you they're using SSL encryption anymore, they're probably not. We've migrated over to TLS. We did that several years ago. SSL itself has been broken. Unfortunately, we still use those two interchangeably. So I'm going to stop here on this video, and I will put up another one talking about starting with integrity and authentication just in the next video.